if you blinked, you probably missed January. We're 1 month down and 11 to go of 2023. So, I want to say hi again to everyone. If you haven't attended one of our events before, welcome. It's great to see you here. And for those of you who haven't attended one of our events before, welcome back, or who have, welcome back. As a quick introduction, my name's Adam Delgado. I'm the CEO and principal consultant of a recruitment business based in Toronto called North Technology People, and I host these events and organize them about once a month. As a recruitment company, we build teams in AI, ML, data, software, mobile, and product, and we host events in these same technology markets as well. For us, we do it purely to give back to the tech market, help people build teams and progress their careers. Yeah, so super excited for the event tonight. It's actually a panel discussion. It's a new event series for us, and is really focused on two core business units. We're calling them the corners tonight. So we've got our software engineering panelists in one corner and our product kind of panelists in the other corner. Now, putting them in a corner means no sense that they're fighting each other. This is all about kind of collaboration and kind of creating a dialogue. We've got our product in one corner, engineering in the other. If you're in obviously technology, building products and selling software is a huge kind of part of the business. And then these two teams are probably, mission critical in that venture there. So moving forward, I'm going to invite our panelists to join me on stage one by one. They're going to give a quick introduction about themselves. How's it going there, Lakshmi? Great to see you.
Hey, Adam. Nice meeting you. Thanks for having me.
Indeed. We've got Bojan there as well. Lakshmi, maybe if you want to give us a wee introduction about yourself and what corner you'll be fighting out of this evening.
Sure. So, hello everyone. I'm Lakshmi Baskaran. I am a technology enthusiast. So I am one of those fortunate few who had an opportunity to translate my passion into a working profession. So I spent my last 20 years of my career in technology, lately as Vice President of Engineering at Sedna. I'm currently on a technology sabbatical. What I mean by that is a time for myself to build some of the cool projects that I've been hoping to build for a very long time and bring them into life. So the last couple of months, I've been spending 8 hours a day. I mean, it's everyone's wish to actually work on cool projects, reading and writing, all that I wanted to do in life. So that's my life so far. And I'm really looking forward to have this conversation with some amazing panelists about software engineering and product and the space between both.
Awesome, Lakshmi. Thanks for your intro there. Bojan, great to see you, sir. Love to hear a little bit about yourself and a cheeky little intro there.
Thanks so much for the invite. So I am VP of Engineering and Operations, and together with 90 of my colleagues at Edvisor, we're on a mission to transform the lives of international students. And we're doing that by building the world's first global distribution system for the travel abroad industry. Before this experience, I spent 15 years on the opposite side of the corporate spectrum, supporting SRE, platform, and operations at TELUS, which is one of the major Canadian telcos.
Nice one. Thanks for that. Alexandra, nice to see you there. Great to have you on the panel tonight. Feel free to give us a little introduction.
Sure. Thanks for having me here, Adam, tonight. My name is Alexandra. I've been working in the product field for the last 20 years. And lately, in the last 10 years, I've been having roles as VP of product director in multiple companies. I have specialized mainly on marketplaces and SaaS companies here in Canada as well as in Europe. And my passion is essentially transforming teams to take them to the next level. I love to take teams that are struggling, etc., and provide them tools to actually have a great impact for customers, for the business, and for people in general. Besides that, I'm mother of 2 kids. I love music and dancing. I'm super excited to be here tonight discussing a lot of topics which are, by the way, very interesting topics. We always deal with these things and these conversations in all the companies about how do we work better between product and engineering. So grateful to be here.
Awesome, Alexandra. Thanks so much for that. Mother, product extraordinaire, dancer. She does it all, ladies and gents. Hey, Deb, how's it going, man? Good to see you.
Hey, that worked.
We got there.
Great to meet you all. My name is, as you can see on the screen, I let you do that tongue twister, but I go by Deb. And I work at InfinyOn right now. Infini. I mean, it just sounds like infinity, right? InfinyOn is the name of the company, and I just started this head of product role. I've been in product roles for the past nearly 10 years now. And before that, I used to be an engineer, specifically a data engineer. And therefore, you can tell I am in the realm of data engineering, analytics, data sciences, AI, ML, the entire gamut of it. And it's supposed to be really, really hot now. And we see that there's this new sort of pattern emerging whereby there is this archetype of a data product manager. HBR published something recently, 3 months or so back. I'm hearing more and more influencers talking about it, and I'm in the thick of those things pretty much every day. Other than that, early stage is where I find a lot of excitement. I think that's where I'm at right now. I've been with larger companies, larger players like GM and IBM, but I really like the thrill of early stage. And I've worked across multiple domains, healthcare, public safety, biotech, and obviously mentioned automotive and large technology. Right now, we are working in this space of real-time data streaming, which is an interesting problem. And there are a few solutions out there, but I would like to argue not optimal ones. But obviously, the topic of discussion is something that we have to wrestle with, is how I would put it, right? All the time, because these are not the two teams at play. There are other players, and we have to collaborate, work with each other, and have each other's back in some sense, right? So I appreciate the fact that it was called out that we are not in the corners of a fighting ring. Although you just turned it back and said we are fighting. We are not. We are collaborating, hopefully. But good to meet you all. Looking forward.
Yeah. Nice one, Deb. Thanks for that. Hey, there he is, Derwin. You made it. Awesome. So we were, give us a quick intro there, mate, and then we'll kick it off.
All right, cool. So director of engineering for Lightspeed, obviously trying to have tech issues, so perfect timing. It was working when we were in the green room. But yeah, I think what I enjoy doing is like building those strong product teams, working with product as that partnership, trying to figure out like how do we, from a tech side, enable like the tech to unlock the business as well as product. So, excited to join this group, and happy to kind of give my feedback and my stance on like, how I see things working out.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much. So flipping it on now. Yeah, so product and development best practices. So let's open it up to our product panelists. So talking about product playing a role in platforming in the platform team of an engineering organization. Opening up to Deb and Alexandra. What are your thoughts and comments there?
Yeah, I think product should play a relevant role there. Of course, a product probably cannot provide a lot of information about how the platform should look like and what we are supposed to do to scale the product and the platform. But I think product can help the engineering folks on sponsoring some of the platform changes. I think what I have noticed in the past is that the engineering teams usually struggle trying to convince the organization to invest on platform. And I see the platform is essentially the foundation of the product, right? We build features on top of the platform, but if the platform is not robust enough, right, it will be just a matter of time until something breaks, right? Or that we cannot actually add and build more features on top of it. So I think both need to work together, and product, as I said, can sponsor those changes, can help the engineering team to have one voice at the C-level to actually get the buy-in.
Yeah, I really like what you said there about sponsoring the changes there. Deb, what are your thoughts? You want to piggyback on anything there, mate?
Yeah, I think it's it's actually very valid, the point that Alexandra made about being vocal. Without the platform, products, I mean, can exist, but they don't necessarily scale. So you'd notice a pattern, and I'm sure our engineering friends would testify to this to some degree. Most SaaS products, what happens is you start out with typically monolithic applications, and then you get to scale, you get product market fit, you get a lot of users, and you start scaling, and things start breaking, and you are basically sitting with tons and tons of bugs and issues and performance challenges, and you're fixing errors, etc., right? And it's kind of a cart before the horse scenario, right? And I have had, thankfully, the opportunity of working in platform teams. Historically, platform teams have been, from a product perspective, super internal, but that's not good enough because the platform has to enable the business. And that ways, I have experienced what Alexandra described, needing to be this voice for engineering to say, like, look, we need to develop better tooling so that we can scale the system, or else we will just be firefighting all the time, right?
Yeah, way to go. Thanks, Deb and Alexandra. And want to kind of flip that onto engineering. Maybe if we kind of, I don't know how everybody's cameras there are sorted, but maybe if Derwin, if you want to kind of give us your thoughts, maybe from an engineering perspective, and how kind of product is playing a role in the platform team of an engineering organization.
Yeah. So the way I see it is like exactly how I guess that Deb was mentioning is just like, how do you start scaling that? What does that look like? I think when you start to have many different products and they're solving common problems, I think that's a good way to kind of start looking at that. I think if it's just that platform team is doing one-off customization aspect, like I think it's more of like, how do we multiply our efforts to satisfy the product teams?
Nice one. Thanks for that. And Lakshmi, maybe do you want to give us your thoughts on this topic?
Sure. This topic is very near and dear to me because I just had a very recent experience where we started off building a platform team in quite an anti-pattern way. So we said, hey, we need this platform team to go back and rebuild some of our foundational elements and focus on the stability and reliability of the platform. Great. So some of our amazing engineers came together and started what we call as the platform team. It was a 3-member team. So this team went in silos and in isolation and started refining some of the core elements of the platform. Say, for example, a very simple parameter here, we decided that we wanted a 99.99% uptime for a specific component or a feature of the product. We spent probably few sprints bringing up the feature to the level where it is able to sustain a 99.99% uptime. We bring it out to we build it, deploy it, get it out to the customers, and then there's not a lot of happiness in our customers. I mean, the customers did not feel content about this particular service being 99.9% up. And we're all wondering, why is that? Because it started off with not asking the question, is this the right thing to tackle in a product foundational point of view? And that is where our product managers come into play, because they do the research, they work with the customers, they know what our product vision is and which part of the product needs that level of stability and sustainability. We did not take any of that inputs. Engineers, as engineers, we thought what is right for the product, what is right for the organization, and started building it. So we started off with an anti-pattern. And something that Deb said that resonated with me quite well. We will all agree that engineers are not great at being the voice for themselves, right? So we have this amazing platform team doing great things, but from an organization level, everyone were wondering, what is this team doing? What are this group of 3 amazing engineers doing? So we have this product manager voice for the platform team. So we started off with this kind of anti-pattern. It didn't take too long for us to realize having a product manager in a platform team is going to bridge a number of these gaps and make the team more efficient and make them prioritize on things that are truly important for the business and important for the product. Boom, we brought a product manager in and things turned upside down. So our product manager was the voice, not just to our organization, but also to our customers about how we are continuing to evolve the foundational aspects of the platform. And this is something that's very close to my heart. I'll take this to the rest of my career because I spent closely like 3 months building this team, helping to make them more efficient, but not having this single element of a product manager did not set them up for success.
Awesome, thanks, Lakshmi. Lots of great things to unpack, and I think we're kind of hitting on a few themes here. Like the product is certainly the voice and the direction, and then I guess I would kind of vision it as like the product's kind of setting the vision and the captain and kind of deciding where we're going, and then the engineering team is rowing and building and kind of moving there. Bojan, let's see your thoughts. Keen to hear what you have to say.
Sure, kind of two thoughts. I think the first one is the direction of a platform team for me is one of the areas that is probably the furthest that engineering's corner comes from the product side. And even then what we're seeing, and what I mean by that is that as an engineering leader, really our responsibility is to think about where's the product going in a couple of years and what does the platform need to do to be able to support that. So earlier we talked about scale, reliability, all of these things. And that's really where some of that technical knowledge is unique to the engineering team. But that being said, what I'm noticing here and what I really like that I'm seeing is that even in this extreme example where one could easily make the argument that it's an engineering activity only, we're seeing where the importance of that relationship between product and engineering lies. And I love how some of my peers on the product side, if you would, were quick to say, hey, here's how we can help with that. And they were really understanding of what it means. It shows experience, it shows knowledge of how a product, a modern product is built and delivered and what it takes over the long run to do it. So I loved what I was seeing there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And again, lots of good. We're going to kind of cut all these bits up and everybody's going to have these cool little 30-second sound bites of very impressive work stuff to talk about, and we'll push it out on social. So it's a great, awesome start, gang. Awesome start. So want to kind of, we're going to start with engineering again. I want to start talking about kind of healthy conflict. That's an interesting couple of words together. Trust building and mutual understanding between product and engineering. Maybe if we start with Derwin in this instance, if you want to give us some thoughts and ideas on kind of what is healthy conflict and how do these teams kind of build trust and a mutual understanding between product and engineering?
I think the way I look at it is like the teams as a whole should have a common goal, and understanding like why they want to accomplish some of the business problems that they're trying to solve. So understanding the why helps with understanding what KPIs will help move that needle and help bring that conversation or that, I don't know if it's that conflict or that debate, that healthy debate between the teams on what should be done. And from the engineering side, it's like, how should we build it to accomplish that common goal? I think one good book that I've always come across in the past is that Patrick Lencioni, that 5 dysfunctions of a team. It's like, how do we build that trust with that team? So that we can have these healthy conflicts and so on and so forth. Like as you go through up that pyramid, obviously is like the commitment, the accountability, and then you see the results, and which is that common team goal.
Yeah, thanks so much. I saw when you mentioned a book, I saw a lot of head nodding there, so maybe that's kind of resonated there. Want to kind of just unpack a little bit, and if anybody wants to jump in, please do so. I'm just kind of hoping to get to everybody, but healthy conflict in product and engineering, if any, open this up to anybody. What does that mean exactly? What does that look like on a day-to-day kind of, sprint or discussion?
Yeah, in many areas, for example, challenge each other. I mean, is helpful when product has an idea, of course, based on customer feedback, etc. But having this different point of view, having the point of view of engineering challenge what we are thinking and vice versa. Why not product challenging the platform, even though we probably are not technical enough, but having a perspective from an outsider is always healthy. And that is a healthy conflict, right? That enrich the communication and at the end enrich the final outcome, right?
Anybody else want to kind of jump in there? Healthy conflict, what that looks like? Some good points there, Alexandra. Thanks.
I would maybe say that if you're successful as, say, for example, a product team at having the engineering team understand through the years, understand the perspective of our customers, of where the product's going, of what needs to be built, or on the flip side, as an engineering leader, if you're successful at having your peers on the product side understand the needs of the platform or of some of the back-end development work, that's where the conflict has paid off. That is where you know that all of those years of going back and forth have worked. Because those are some of the hardest starting points to bridge, and that's where I think the value really comes in, is you put in the time to understand what's important for that other side, and that's really important for a business as a whole, is not operating as 6-7 different silos, and instead saying, okay, look, we're too big to have one person doing all of this, although there might be questions about that later. But we're going to split it out in ways that people have their focuses and they're not blind spots.
Thoughts? Sorry, so if you some nodding there. Lakshmi, you want to jump in?
I guess conflict is something we do not want to encourage in an organization, right? I mean, when you see a conflict between your peers or between your teams, you immediately jump in to resolve the conflict. But I think when it comes to product and engineering, I observe the conflict, because the reason you want to observe the conflict is basically to understand, where does this conflict stem from? Unless the conflict is not going to lead into a great friction between product and engineering, or unless the conflict is going to impede your delivery deadlines, I encourage people to observe the conflict and subtly observe it to see like where it stems from. Most of the times, the product and engineering conflict, as long as it is healthy, it would lead to each other understanding the challenges of the other team. Product understanding the challenges of engineering, and engineering understanding the challenges of product, right? Vice versa. So when each of these teams understand the challenges cross-functionally, what builds is an empathy. So they are more empathetic towards each other, and this conflict will foster a better working relationship, because working relationship starts with empathy. It's understanding. If Alexandra comes with something that she forces upon on engineering, it's not seen as a force, it's seen as an influence. So when you start building an empathy, you then look upon those things as a matter of not a personal force, but as opposed to a team influence, right? So it's more important to help foster that healthy conflict, as long as it's not going to build a huge friction between your teams.
I agree. I think more than conflict, I think the right word is open communication. I think we should feel comfortable explaining our positions and the whys. I think none of us are crazy, right? There is always a reason for something, right? So when an engineer folk comes and say, but why this? It's because in the back of his head or her head, they are probably thinking about some challenges in the platform or here or there. And I think we just need to ask questions constantly each other. Why? But explain me why you think, so that we, as Lakshmi said, we build empathy and we really understand what is underneath all those concerns.
I think those are really
concern management, that conflict.
I think those are really good points, but we should come full circle to what Derwin was pointing out. So here's the thing: without a shared goal, all conflict is kind of pointless, because, in a sense, if you have a shared goal, let's say if all of us got up and decided that we are going to, no matter what, do the Iron Man or something, and we have to put in a lot of effort and we'll have to go through a lot of struggle and strive towards that goal. If that goal is clear, then in that foundation, the rest of that pain or toil or whatever you want to call doesn't seem that bad, because at the end of the day, as a pattern, conflict is arising out of tension, and that tension is based off of perspectives. Now, it's really incumbent upon product leaders and engineering leaders together to look at different angles of the iceberg and encourage that conflict, so that the entire picture becomes clear. And typically all conflict can be root cause to misalignment, right? That's what we were getting at. Now, where the misalignment is at and the root causes and understanding all of these, it takes effort, right? There's no easy answers here. If the goal and the shared vision is clear, and the relationship building aspect of it is clear, which is trust, empathy, vulnerability, then in that context, conflict is not really a conflict. right? It works.
Just to kind of jump in there, I think one thing is great to hear all these kind of different ideas and such. I think a lot of this kind of comes down, it's maybe from a culture perspective as well. Like if we don't have this shared vision and this kind of style of collaboration, I think we can have all these great people making these decisions and stuff. But I think that fostering that collaborative shared vision has to maybe come from the execs and the founders and that senior management to make sure that everybody is working together and is comfortable having these conversations. I was going to kind of go down the road of kind of unhealthy conflict and maybe what would happen, I guess, when products like, no, we need to do it this way, and engineering's like, no, it has to be done here. What happens? Who has the final say? And how is that maybe healthy conflict, but everybody's just, they're locked in their corners? What's the situation there? How do we resolve that?
I think at the end, decision needs to be objective, right? At the end, going back to what Deb said, we are all solving a problem and we are trying to move a metric, either customer satisfaction or whatever, right? And then you have options, and one option can help more or less, it can have more or less effort. So essentially it's about, okay, based on the facts and the data that we have, this is the option that sounds more, that has more business sense, and that's what we use. We always try to go back to what is the initial objective, right? To unblock the things. That's why, as Deb said, having shared goals is key.
Way to go. Yeah, thanks so much to all our panel there for sharing your thoughts there. Want to talk about maybe two other things kind of quickly. The collaboration between product engineering and customer success. I see this phrase floating around. And I think product now is so many things. Back in the day before there was product, there was UX and UI. And I think product is kind of now the overarching business unit, and we have UX, UI, maybe customer success. How did these teams collaborate and work together? And if anybody wants to kind of jump in there around kind of the talking point of collaboration between product engineering and customer success and how that all fits together.
Well, I can share my experience as to how I have seen it. The core function of customer success as a team is to drive adoption, engagement, retention, which are all product metrics, right? We want our customers to come back and use the product, and that's how there is value exchange taking place. And customer success is really helping do that after sale. And also a big part of it in a lot of organizations, certainly some of the SaaS companies I have worked in, customer success works with sales hand in glove to expand accounts, right? Which means that customer success along with sales are treasure trove of information for product managers, whereby do I want to go to a customer and start discovery afresh? These people are always having calls all the time. So customer success for me has been a great source of information around product usability scenarios, what the customer understands, what they don't understand, what are the kind of request patterns and this kind of thing. And then in that collaboration, the mediator, as I have seen, is the product, whereby engineering always needs some kind of, not protection, but more like some kind of balance whereby, product would go and say that, look, this is what we have produced and we cannot solve everything, right? But at the same time, the customer success folks are like, okay, we are getting these customer complaints, right? So what do we do, right? So product kind of plays the in-between role, whereby it's like, how do we inform our roadmap to enable and grow the business? And that has come from customer success as a source historically, in my experience.
Nice one. And what about maybe Bojan and Derwin? Would love to kind of get your, I know customer success is kind of more in that kind of product realm, but how's the relationship in your engineering teams? And we're talking about a startup and a huge kind of very reputable and established Lightspeed Commerce. Everybody knows the team and the business and culture. Tell me a little bit about maybe how you guys and the team work with customer success in that regard. And yeah, we'd love to unpack that.
Yeah, so maybe a quick thought, which might devolve into a bit of a larger topic here, but it's really interesting because I've seen two models, one where your customer success team will have direct access to engineering prioritization, and the other one where, as Deb was saying, product is kind of the gatekeeper of engineering time, And there's value in both. I really like the idea that if you're making product decisions and prioritization decisions, the after effect of those trade-offs you've made are often through the customer success experience and what they're seeing. And so it's a good feedback loop for the product team. And it makes sense that if we have a finite number of resources, they're there to balance that between new build and things that are addressing our existing customer needs. But on the flip side, and this is where I think it gets a bit meta, but it's interesting, and I'd be curious to hear from some of my peers on the product side what they think about this. I feel like increasingly we're asking the world of product teams. They're responsible for knowing platform, for knowing all of our customer success metrics and outcomes. It's just too much to reasonably put on a single person or team. And this is where I think there is value in splitting that up and saying, hey, okay, it's not all on product shoulder. We all need to play a bit more of a role in terms of how we prioritize and make those decisions. But that is definitely more complex than saying there's one funnel and it's the PM's call. So I'm curious what others think. But maybe first we can go to Derwin before this tangent.
Yeah, so I think from experience, I think they do play a big key part, and it all depends on the life cycle of the product. I think when you're in a startup and you're trying to figure out that product market fit, that voice of the customer from the customer success, I think feeds a lot more into, okay, how do we get that adoption? How do we get into that business a lot more easily? And then when you're in a larger corporate, it acts a little bit differently, where it's like, how do we help them with their current business? How do we, get them to that next stage as well? It's like it's almost like looking at some extra features for the future and future roadmaps. Also understanding, okay, these are some of the kinks within the system that we will need to prioritize, and it could be really based on the type of customer that is, asking for some of these feature requests. So I think it really depends. The relationship is different based on like the actual product life cycle.
Yeah, cool. And let's kind of like unpack this can of worms of the different functions, because one of the talking points I had was like, product growth, product marketing, talking about customer success, talking about product design, product management. It's lots to discuss. Tell me more. What do we think here?
Yeah, as Bojan mentioned, I mean, the product management and product development is a huge area. But I essentially divided, I would say, into two big ones, maybe, which is the world of product strategy, understanding the user problems, what we are supposed to build so we can solve those problems and we can drive the key metrics, right? And then there is another big world about commercialization of the product. How do we get the most out of this product? How do we increase the adoption, right? Through marketing and through many other ways that we have, and how do we monetize it better, right? And here we have product marketing. Here we have sometimes growth as well. Growth is more about bringing traffic, so it's more specific about some type of products, right? But I divide these two worlds because they both have a lot of entity themselves. But yes, certainly the bigger the organization, the more you break the product management function, because it's essentially too big.
Anybody want to jump in there, piggyback on some ideas, unpack?
I've always seen the product management function as three different categories. One is the conception stage, which is the user research. And the other one is the execution stage, which is working closely with engineering to convert an idea into a working feature or a product. And the third one is more of the marketing and promotion stage. Most product managers, they have this T-shape in terms of their career and skill set. They are generalists across research, execution, and market promotion, and they are specialists in one specific area. We often think that product managers are specialists in execution, but however, I've come across some amazing product managers who are more specialists in market adoption, user adoption, and promotion, delivery of the product feature to the customers. So it's more about identifying this T-shaped metrics in terms of like, these are the common generalist skills that are required to be a successful product manager. And what are those specialist skills that a specific product manager possesses, and how can the organization better leverage those skills at the life cycle of the product development?
That's right. Mature products will require some skills, while products that needs to reach the market fit will require other skills. There's no like one single definition for product.
Yeah, the last part, what Alexandra mentioned, is critical. Like there are multiple schools of thoughts, and this sort of gets to addressing Bojan's question. Uh, the model, the mental model that I have adopted or iterated towards right now is product management is broken down into feature work, growth work, scaling work, product market fit expansion work, which is kind of like, okay, you're scaling and you need different use cases, adjacent use cases. This is something that is promoted by folks at Reforge and a few other companies that essentially came and created that body of knowledge. Now, obviously, aligned with the body of knowledge, I believe a part of the problem is like all of these methodologies and framework, when they become really big, whereby there are evangelism, outreach, and training and certification, then that, I would argue, adds a little bit of noise, and then makes us figure out what we want to choose and take deliberate sort of decisions around it, right? At the end of the day, though, like if you think about the first principles, and this goes back to Bojan's question, right? Why does a business exist? It exists for profits, right? I mean, it's as simple as that, right? If we can simplify that, and then you decompose, okay, how do you get profits? Well, you'll have to have more revenue than your cost of goods, right? And then everything sort of flows from that. In product, we use different prioritization frameworks. They're all tied to that. So if we can map the metrics, then that distribution could be much more beneficial. The reason we end up doing these siloed, not really aligned, kind of tensile different departments managing their own metrics is because there is not, I mean, it's a part of it is a tool problem, part of it is a people problem, whatever, but there is not like a unified, coherent view in modern day SaaS companies that covers everything. And that's probably like an NP hard problem, too much to ask. But at the end of the day, if every team is forced to draw out how what they're doing ties to a dollar metric or a retention metric or a single whatever North Star framework, whatever you want to call it, right? Then that becomes simplified and manageable.
Nice one. I think that we've spent so much. It's 45 minutes in, and we've gotten just past topic number one. So I want to kind of crack the egg and just have a lot of fast ideas going around here. So, Derwin, I want to ask you about time and priority management at Lightspeed, and kind of engineering teams making time for technical debt and security. Would love to hear your thoughts there.
So I think the way that we work here is we do sprint work, and that's every 2 weeks. And then I think the thing is that we have to carve out time for tech debt, security, all that maintenance work, like even like upgrading like versions as well. I think it's planning that out and understanding what can we accomplish within the small time, like I guess that 15%, 20%, whatever that guideline is. If there are bigger initiatives that are more systemic that need, that require a larger amount of time, I think that is when we have to prioritize what we're working on and the criticality of this tech debt that's coming up. Is this tech debt now going to like stop the business, or is this going to now enable us to do more things, right? Like, have we reached the capacity of the actual debt itself? So I think those conversations do come into play when you are trying to figure out the time management of the team.
Certainly got to make time for it from the sound of things. Anybody else, thoughts, opinions, ideas?
I agree. I think the best is just to reserve some time for tech debt. Usually it's between 15 to 30%. It depends on how the product is and the maturity of the product. You may have more or less technical debt, but yeah, I think we should be constantly, and it doesn't have to be a fixed time that, hey, every week, every month, every quarter, I have to spend 20%. No, it can fluctuate, right? Depending on the priorities, etc. But having like a rhythm of work around technical debt is healthy.
Yeah, I think it's just that guideline of like that number, right? So as long as we can stay within that, I think it's a healthy rule.
And maybe just offering a contrary view, because I agree, most of the experiences that I've seen is about allocating a specific amount of time towards it. But especially at scale, there are some alternatives that become viable. So for example, whether it's a technical product manager whose role it is to advocate, just like you would for a feature, for work on paying down technical debt, or the product manager having the responsibility of actually prioritizing that technical debt. The trick becomes, and this is something that TELUS Digital in particular, we did, is we created a matrix where we could actually measure something like 30, 40 different aspects of technical debt, security debt, all accessibility, all of these kind of things. And so for a product manager, with their product specialist, then their job was really to balance, do we need a new feature? Do we need to upgrade this? Do we need to invest in accessibility? And I think that's really quite a healthy model, but it takes a lot of resources to pull that off, and it's probably not for the faint of heart. And just a last point, I think tech debt, we won't get into that, but that's quite an interesting topic. Defining that accurately is important. I have 2 words about it, which is Adam Thornhill. Read whatever he writes. I like it. It makes sense.
We can go there. If it's a can of worms that got some laughs, what's tech debt? What does that mean? Just maybe quickly kind of a tweet. What is tech debt? Maybe if everyone wants to kind of chime in there, because I think it's one of those terms that gets thrown around a lot. What do we think it is? And yeah.
The right analogy I have for tech debts is when you blow balloons. I mean, the balloon is going to pop at some point, but you continue to blow them and it just pops at one point in time. That's exactly what tech debts are. Tech debts continue to sustain and stay in a platform for as long as it wants. And we know it's going to pop at some time, but we continue to build on top of the tech debt, and boom, one day things go out of shape, your platform stops functioning, your users are complaining. So that's a perfect analogy of tech debt. One of my peers, one of my members of the team told me, like, I don't think it's a tech debt. It's actually called as a tech enablement. I mean, it's enabling your platform, enabling your foundational aspects of your product to continue to prosper, to continue to be scalable and sustainable. Because the debt generally gives a negative connotation. When you're talking to engineers and you're telling them, hey, can you please work on this tech debt? No, I want to work on the next flashy feature, right? But however, if you actually spin it a bit on the other side and say, this is one of the bread and butter of a product foundation, can you work on enabling this technology so that the product could be more sustainable and more scalable? Then you get a lot of joy and a lot of passion towards solving the problem between both product and engineers. So I've moved away from using the word debt to actually calling it as an enablement, to just spin off a bit of positive connotation and bring more enthusiasm among product and engineering to solve some of the technical enablement problems.
The other way that I see it is technical debt is all that is in the code that become a blocker every time you are trying to build more and more. And the way that I have found product and engineering could prioritize that technical debt and put it in dollars, because at the end it's all about dollars. Do I build a feature that with that I get more sales, or do I focus a little bit more on removing the technical debt, right? And I think having all those things in the code and in the platform make building new stuff more and more expensive. You can see it as something that breaks, which is a service issue, right? Your number of bugs are going to increase and your service tickets are going to increase over time. But the other way sometimes is you don't see it that way. You don't want to get to that point, right? But you will start seeing it that the cost of building and developing and delivery keep increasing over time as you have more and more technical debt. And that is the way that you can translate these into dollars, because you can say, if we don't do this, our cost of development are going to increase in this much.
I love, great examples there. And Lakshmi, I love your idea of the balloon there. I think, like any debt in life, you don't want technical debt or financial debt to kind of follow you around. It's like, oh, I've got 20K in debt and I made $5,000 this month. It's like, well, it's not very efficient kind of moving forward. So yeah, thanks a lot for that. Your thoughts. Let's kind of talk about some principles this is point number 4 on the Google Doc there for our panelists. Principles of dealing with organizational politics and shared accountability. I want to kind of go around and kind of ask this question, and then I want to open it up to the panel, because I know I wanted to kind of keep this in about an hour. So I think about another 15-ish minutes, and we'll probably kind of put it in a pin for tonight. But let's talk about principles of dealing with org politics and shared accountability. If anybody want to kind of jump in there.
So I'll maybe start it off with saying the engineering's most important partner is product, and product's most important partner is engineering. And I'm not leaving my friends in design out, but ultimately it comes down to those two. So whenever I'm looking at an organization, I'm always wanting to know who's going to be my peer on the product side, if there is a peer, because there isn't always. It's sometimes one person, which is interesting. And that really comes down to the impact we can have, that our teams can have on each other, and what it comes down to at the end of the day when you're at that executive meeting, the timelines haven't been hit. Is it going to be finger pointing, or is it going to be a honest look at what caused us to get here and what do we need to do differently, either to get out of here or not run into this issue again? So I really see it as the most important relationship you can have in a modern software company. And just as a quick aside, I'm curious if we'll have time, or if people can already start submitting Q&A. We can probably tailor some of the answers that we have time for before the end of the session to what the audience would like to know. But yeah, over to you.
Yeah, no, good idea, Bojan. We'll certainly get to Q&A. And if the audience want to pop in some questions, I know we've got some people on LinkedIn as well. We can pop some questions in there. But yeah, let's kind of keep that train going about kind of the principles of dealing with org politics and shared accountability. If anybody else wants to jump in.
I think having shared goals is important for accountability. I haven't seen it in many organizations except to one, where OKRs, the main things to solve at the company level. We had OKRs at the company level, even if they were technical. So product marketing, we all have visibility that, hey, this is a painful problem, even if it's on the engineering side, but we all have visibility at the company level. So we move OKRs that were probably technical, product, marketing, etc., all at that level that created focus on that, and also made the accountability of everyone more clear as well.
Yeah, thanks for that, Alexandra. Anybody else want to kind of chime in with thoughts on this?
Well, a couple of tactical things that help out. And I would say that I appreciate, again, Bojan's point on the partnership thing. I think that's a true principle to start out with, building that partnership properly, right, amongst the engineering and the product leads, right? Now, what really has helped tactically is having a decision journal, right? One of the things that causes these kind of misalignments when there is high speed iteration of development work and you're delivering stuff, right? There are many assumptions that are made, and then when the things don't pan out as they should or as expected, which is like 95% of the times, right? You would then have to figure out what is the rationale, right? What is something that you can take and understand where things went wrong, so that you can move on to the next decision. And there's this gap there then in the lesson learned or the learnings, which really helps if you have a decision journal, if you have good retrospectives, if you have clear metrics, right? One of the biggest challenge or problems that are created is like different teams measure their own data and they'll bring in and they have kind of their own ideas, and then the business functions are not kind of aligned. And then it's necessary then for product and engineering to come together and say, hey, we essentially did the work. And if you think about it, it's input of a hypothesis, and then planning the work, then delivering against that work, which produces the output. Then the customer uses it, and then they get the value from it. Then we get the outcome. There are quite a few layers to that. I mean, it's futile to take that shortcut of simplifying it when we know that these things are complex, and at least present the value of the work, celebrating the wins and things like that. Some of these things are very, very, very helpful, even though they seem trivial and kind of overlooked, is what I'd say.
Yeah, good thoughts there.
I think Deb makes a good point. I wanted to echo something here. Having a common goal and defining common elements of success criteria for both product and engineering is extremely important. It has to stem up from there. But one of the common paradigms I've observed in product and engineering is, in addition to having a common goal, it's also important to define clear levels of accountability. And you would often see this between a product manager and an engineering manager. An agile team has a product manager who represents product, and an engineering manager who represents the engineers. So it is important to define clear levels of accountability as to what is a product manager responsible for and what is an engineering manager responsible for. In a well-run, highly functional agile teams, the product manager will own the why and the what of the feature, or why and what of the work that they're doing. Why are we solving this problem? What is the pain point? And what do we need to build or to deliver or to ship in order to solve the problem? And then the engineering team, owned by the engineering manager, takes over the how part of it. So how are we going to solve the problem? Build it and ship it. So when you have these clear levels of accountability, you don't have that friction points when there are a lot of unknowns. And also for the wider executive team, if there is an unknown in terms of the why and the what, they can reach out to the product manager. And if there is an unknown in terms of how we are solving this problem, they could reach out to the engineering manager. And in my past product engineering orgs, when we defined this clear level of accountability, it helped both the teams to have some clear decision points, and also the teams to move faster as well, because they know who to reach out to when they have that slighter version of I don't know what I need to do. So for the why and the what, your product manager is responsible for clarifying that. And for the how, your engineering manager is going to pull up the resources and bring a level of clarity over that.
And there is another one, the when. Who
communicates
the when? That's actually one of the talking points that we had, right? How do you see how the rest see communicates the when?
That's a very good point, Alexandra. When, in my view and in my experience, when is best managed by both product and engineering. The engineers come back and say, hey, this takes probably 4 sprints to build a feature. Now, product and engineering, we should create a communication pattern for them to negotiate on the when, right? Product manager says, oh, it's 4 sprints, it's 8 weeks. Of course, we cannot wait that long. We need to go for an early beta. So what could be built within 3 sprints? And being able to foster that pattern of communication and negotiate the scope and timeline would help them to agree on a common function and say, okay, in order for us to be successful, this is when we need to deliver it. So from an accountability perspective, I would say it's an engineering function, but both product and engineering need to foster that back and forth negotiation to define and agree on that when timeline that is right for the organization.
And that allowed us to manage expectations outside. Yeah.
One tactical trick I found, because Lakshmi, your point on when and that timeline, one trick I found is effective is, instead of talking about 4 sprints or time, talk about cost. So define a cost of each week, day, whatever, an engineer's time. And then the engineering team is responsible for coming back to product and saying your feature is going to cost $50,000 to build. And as a PM, then you can make more rational decisions about, okay, I can't afford to sink $50K without trying this. What can we build for $20K so that I can try it, make sure it's worth the business case? This changes the dialogue just enough that I think it's a little bit healthier, because I can never, the conflict we talked about earlier, the only time I've seen it get really impactful is when it's to do with timelines.
100%. I can agree with you more on this point.
Yeah, some gold dust here in kind of ideas, and I love that. The idea that product is why and what, and engineering is how. Cool. So look, want to this obviously we could spend another hour or more talking about these talking points. So if the panel want to have a look-see at that Google Doc, that there's a few, because I know there's a few things that we haven't talked about that are super important. And I know some of you had brought specific ideas and agendas and philosophies and, opinions that you wanted to share. Wanted to kind of open up the panel and just ask if anybody had specific talking points that they felt were super important to put on the table at this point in time. If you wanted to, just really want to kind of open that up and see what anybody wanted to say. Maybe if we go around, Lakshmi, go for it.
Personally, I would like to learn from Deb, because one of the things we wanted to talk about is the career transition between product and engineering and vice versa. And since Deb has gone through it himself, I'd like to probably learn more from your experience. How was the career transition going from an SRE function over to the product function?
Okay, well, I think we could come in many shapes and forms. Mine personally, data point of one as an anecdote is I was in a data engineering role whereby I was able to build faster than the market was ready for innovation. So healthcare is obviously heavily regulated like finance and others, right? And I was essentially helping out in that role, which was back in 2011. Around 2011, 2012, we went through a on-prem to SaaS transformation, a waterfall to agile transformation, and regular databases to big data transformation. So there was a point in time where I was teaching people how to get started with big data and things like that, right? So I was fairly deep into it. But the biggest frustration that I had as an engineer was that I cannot go past POCs to the hand of customer, right? And during that agile transformation, I helped out as a Scrum Master for user acceptance testing and things like that, which are very much like the intersection between product management and engineering. And I deliberately asked this question: what must be true for me to have more influence on what gets shipped to customers? And then that's how I kind of stumbled upon product management. Now, the journey was weird because then I left that job and started my own company because I was arrogant, right? So I would categorize myself as an arrogant product manager, and learned in that way through failing in a startup that, well, there are other things that are required to run a business, which is where you're like, okay, you need money. At the end of the day, money and time are the two most precious things there are, right? And time is probably a little precious than money for me now. And then gradually I worked I just used my transferable skills in data, because data was consequential, not really my choosing, but everyone was struggling to fill data roles, right? So I got my break as a head of data in a small company with scale to 100 or so people. And obviously then you're heading product and doing pretty much everything that need to be. Now, one of the things I am trying, which is aligned with the previous point of negotiation, I kind of think right now there is this pattern of this company called 37 Signals, which makes this tool called Basecamp, right? Where they say, okay, wherever there's contention, why don't you choose something and go, right? And they say 6 weeks is the time that they will choose to release. Doesn't matter. There is no negotiation, right? If you can do something in 1 day, do it in 1 day, and then that's how you plan the 6 weeks. But they will say, okay, what can you bring in as product to define the problem and prioritize it based on the value that you're looking to deliver to your customer, and then bring that to the table. And development would have freedom, essentially, beyond just some rough prototypes, right, to decide how it will go. So I'm trying to implement that and see if that is a little bit easier on the negotiation side of things. But from the tech debt perspective, what was fascinating is my last role was leading a group as a group product manager, product lead, whatever. And all I worked on was platform and tech debt for an entire year, right? Literally no new feature whatsoever. So, that was just that was the most valuable thing for business, right? So looking at some of these flavors and failing at a bunch of startups, it was just something that I benefited in my journey like that way. Different people have different transitions. I can connect you with few people if you're interested in moving to product. I'm curious if there's a vice versa that exists. I'm not really sure. Have not met many people like that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Deb. And I leveraged more of Basecamp's 6 weeks framework in my last org. So we can also chat offline and I can share some of our experiences adopting it and some of the best practices that we followed through it and some of the challenges of adopting that approach as well.
Nice one. Yeah, great question, Lakshmi, and thanks for your input there, Deb. To the other panelists, do we have any kind of talking points we want to put on the table?
I'd love to answer the question we got in the Q&A. I think it's a really good one.
Yeah, shoot. I was go for it, man. What are they asking?
Yeah, so I think the question here is, what's the role in PMO in bridging this gap? Do you think we even need this? So this is a really interesting question, because I think for a lot of startups and companies that were agile to start with, the idea of a project manager, which is what I'm assuming PMO is project management office here, is antithetical. That doesn't exist. We're not going to do that. But I actually think there's a real role for it, even in a small organization. And the example that I think is relevant here is any cross-cutting concerns that are one-time items. So for example, we're introducing compliance to some sort of framework, whether it's GDPR, ISO 2700, all of those. If it's a large platform migration, a total overhaul of the brand, M&A that requires tech integration. These are all examples of things that your traditional organization is not structured to support, but any real company will need to go through. And so I think instead of holding, with iron grip to the Agile Manifesto or any other framework that tells you shouldn't have these kind of roles, I actually think they're really valuable. And if the company's too small, you don't have to have them full time. You can say, okay, we're going to have these people who have the right skills in terms of change management and organizational development to play that role when we need it. So that's my thought. And I think it's a great question. Thank you for asking it.
I want to add some points on the. Sorry, Alexandra, go first. I can follow suit.
Sorry, I was just going to add to what Bojan said. When the magnitude of the project is very large, but especially it has a lot of cross functions involved within the organization, is very helpful, because coordinating, having a PM, coordinating all those pieces is very time consuming, and it moves the product manager away from what their focus should be, which is not coordinating everyone, but more solving the problem and ensuring that what we are developing and doing is actually solving the problem and we are driving the metrics that we need to, right?
I just wanted to add here that I've seen most startups, scale-ups, and most established companies have started to build this team called Product Operations Team, which is nothing but a clone of PMO. PMO is something you would have seen in more established orgs, like the telcos, like the fintechs. You would see a PMO org. And the scale-ups and startups have now started to realize the real significance of PMO org, but they have created this new function called Product Ops. And as Alexandra mentioned, the key function of the Product Ops is more about stakeholder management, is more about bringing the product experience. I mean, the engineering folks in this panel would agree that in engineering science, now we have what we call as DevX. I mean, platform teams have the developer experience teams, where we focus on how do we engage more of our developers, improve their efficiency by building the tools and systems. And I think the similar function on the product side is the Product Ops. In addition to managing the stakeholder communication and things like that, how can they actually build a better product manager experience so that the product managers can continue to focus on the vision and how to take the product out, and the Product Ops team can focus on how to build a better experience to make these product managers more efficient. So I truly think it's a very important function. A good piece I've read is, I'll put it on the message here, why scale-ups need product operations, from Insight Partners, that talks about the evolution of Product Ops team and the core functions of the Product Ops team. If anyone is interested, I would highly encourage reading that piece.
Nice one. Yeah, thanks, Lakshmi. Yeah, developer experience, not something I've kind of heard of, but yeah, it's kind of like you said, building, improving their productivity and building the tools and systems for them to be more efficient, I guess. Want to, kind of open it up again. We've got I think probably another maybe 10 minutes or so just kind of wrap up. Final thoughts. Are there any other specific talking points? I think, maybe a final, pros and cons of a joint product and an engineering team. So instead of splitting it down the middle, if maybe one person kind of is managing everything, we'd love to kind of maybe get some thoughts and opinions on that kind of a joint product and engineering team.
I think it comes down to every organization. How is the company, right? Typically, a small companies, it's very easy to have one person overseeing product and engineering, and actually it brings pros for those companies, right? Decision making is easier, and having the same person balancing the needs of engineering, the platform, the product, etc., brings a lot of simplicity in the process, right? A process that is very complicated, the product engineering processes. However, as the company increases in size and the complexity of the portfolio, etc., of course, this person it will be very complicated for this person to actually oversee everything. And that's when typically the organizations split this role, and you need someone more focused on the product and with the product skills. It's also very difficult to ask one person to have both hats. And the mindset that you need for both is different, even though there are people that are these unicorns and they are able to do it like that. But yeah, essentially with the portfolio is too big, the company, etc., is healthy to split it, to give focus to every function.
Well, I think there have been, I've taken a bunch of notes. I think the topics and the dialogue and the wealth of experience all of our panelists has been extremely valuable, and I hope the audience has gotten a lot from it. I love this layout. We've got the non-technical person, and then a bunch of really great panelists here. So I'm going to take a sneaky little screenshot here, just for my own kind of shits and gigs there. I'm going to give a thumbs up if y'all want to kind of dab, whatever you like. I'm going to take a cheeky little screenshot here, put the peace signs up. Thank you everybody so much for tuning in tonight. It's been a fantastic show, amazing event. It's the first event that we've done in this style of kind of a panel event. So I think I just want to say thank you sincerely to all of our panelists for making time for this event. And this is the first event we're hosting this year. We're going to do some in-person stuff as well. Alrighty, if there was a gong, we'd be hitting it. Thanks again, Lakshmi, Bojan, Derwin, Deb, and Alexandra. Super grateful for everybody coming in and sharing your thoughts and opinions with the panel tonight. And to our audience as well, thanks everybody tuning in on LinkedIn. Great to see you all. And we'll be back with more events later this year. Thanks so much, everyone. Take care. Have a great night. Stay safe.